Imagine taking a noisy walk through Magdeburg in Germany at 8 in the evening on a frosty December night. You're on your way to the Christmas market with a couple of friends, merrily chatting away, carrying a local brew in a hide flask as you head towards the Stadtpark. You pass through a small cluster of trees, and as you emerge on the other side in the open grass, you come across this. A 2-tonne wool-clad rhinoceros staring you down, and you suddenly remember that you are a Neanderthal, and this is the Pleistocene, and the Christmas market wouldn't be invented here for 50,000 years. Because Germany, along with much of Europe, was once plastered with animals that we'd now associate only with the remotest and most hostile of African savannas. Elephants, cheetahs, hyenas, and this guy, a woolly rhinoceros. In this video, we are continuing our prehistoric planet Ice Age theme, and we're going to take a look at one of the largest herbivores of the Ice Age ecosystem ever in Europe. And we'll finish with a tribute to our human cousins who depended on them for food for hundreds of thousands of years before we came along. Let's begin with some strange depictions. In the late 1700s, gold miners cutting into the Siberian permafrost found one of the most precious specimens that you could ever hope for coming from a prehistoric animal. They recovered a large portion of a mummified body, still with intact skin from the ear, the head, the foreleg and the hind legs still intact. There was a jawbone and teeth. There was the rest of the skull too, and on it were two impressive horns. Inside the body there were intestines and a stomach, including their contents. From this selection of remains you can answer almost any biological question answerable about an animal. But one big question stuck out. What was a rhinoceros doing in the permafrost of Siberia, of all places? We now know, of course, that rhinos were once all over the place, and this one, Coelodonta antiquitatis, or the woolly rhino, was one of the most widespread and prevalent of all Pleistocene megafauna in general, let alone rhino species. But it wasn't just all the way up in Siberia. These animals, as we alluded to in the intro, were all over Europe, and the discovery in the 1700s wasn't the first either. By this time, Europe was well aware of the historical unicorns. Magdeburg in Germany was not only the site of a whole ecosystem full of megafauna like this, but tens of thousands of years later, it also became the site of one of the best examples of primitive paleontological reconstructions ever displayed. The Magdeburg Unicorn was the result of a bunch of fossils unearthed around 1663 in Germany. That and the wishful thinking of people for whom paleontology didn't really exist yet. The location today is known as the Unicorn Cave, and you can still visit this 5-million-year-old hole in the wall and learn about its role as a source of unicorn bone for magical powders in the Middle Ages. So it's not all that surprising that when these 17th century fossils emerged from this location, they were assumed to have been from a unicorn. 5 years after the bones were discovered, Prussian scientist Otto von Guericke reconstructed them into what he thought this animal would have looked like. This is what he came up with. In 1704, the relevant drawings were published in the Protozoa, a publication by Gottfried Leibniz on geology and natural history, in which the author presents the idea that the Earth has undergone much greater changes than was generally supported for the time. As a quick aside, Protozoa is fascinating and a deeply impressive piece of work that both questioned and built upon the common wisdom of the time, namely that of Descartes, whose Principia Philosophiae was itself groundbreaking work for the 1600s, and published not long before this was. In it, you can witness Leibniz tease out the earliest of our understandings of things like fossilized wood, amber, and peat, and where all these things came from. But of course, most amusingly, this weird two-footed unicorn shows up in Protozoa, and quite clearly it's comprised of more than one animal. But the truth about this woolly rhino is only fractionally less mythical than that of the imaginary horned horse. Before Homo sapiens arrived and ruined European megafauna, this rhino would have been one of the largest and most prevalent animals on the continent. And even for a long time after our species arrived, they remained that way. The remains from the gut of this specimen brought up in the Siberian gold mine shows that this was an animal that grazed and browsed on grasses and sagebrushes, and that it was dated to around 40,000 years prior to its discovery. Now, interestingly, 40,000 years ago, Europe as a whole was coming to the end of a series of prolonged extreme cold and excessively dry conditions that spanned around 4,000 years. And the local Europeans of the time, Neanderthals, who were known to have migrated up and down Europe in waves that followed these climate patterns, were almost extinct. The rhinos themselves are thought to have originated somewhere around China and migrated into Europe, but for whatever reason they never made it into the Americas. These animals then, like the Neanderthals, were a Eurasian species born and bred, and just one of around 100 rhinoceros species discovered worldwide. And as the name suggests, these were one of the fluffy variants. The woolly rhino was unquestionably a cold weather specialist. This was an advanced or late-stage species of the Coelodonta genus, the earliest member of which is found around Tibet from around 3.7 to 5 million years ago, and the type species and the best known being this woolly boy, who went extinct remarkably recently at around 14,000 years ago. In fact, this species is so specialized for the cold that wherever it's found it is considered an indicator species of cold climates. That means if you are to find woolly rhino bones around, you can be confident that this location at the time of their death was a place of extreme cold, and the rhino had a bunch of adaptations to support itself in this climate. The thick, shaggy coat on the animal is the first and most obvious adaptation to cold climates, but there were plenty more. This coat was likely brown with a dense insulating undercoat and a coarse protective layer of guard hairs over the top. But the rhino had small ears, which is a common feature among cold weather animals, as big ears lose heat too quickly. And you just look to the African elephant for the antipode of this concept. It has short legs for the same reason, and a short tail too. It had remarkably thick skin and up to 3 centimeters of fat beneath that. The woolly rhino was about the size of the largest rhino species around today, so it wasn't mythical in size, but it did sport some pretty mythical weaponry. On the business end of this animal sat a pair of horns, the front of which was longer and would have reached up to 1.5 meters in length. Wear patterns on these horns suggest that they were also an adaptation to the cold. They were used as snow shovels to forage for food. But of course they were used in defense too, and this is key to understanding the sheer brutality of the European landscapes of the Pleistocene. Among the plethora of predators that these monstrous animals would have had to face were cave hyenas, cave lions, and Pleistocene wolves. Many remains from the species are found in caves like the Unicorn Cave, which is a sign that hyenas were carrying them into these caves during the Pleistocene. Their horns also show signs of damage from other rhinos, which suggests they would have been used in competition with conspecifics too, just as we see in modern rhinos. But there were 2 predators of particular note, both of them bipeds, and one significantly more detrimental to the existence of the woolly rhino than the other. And we'll come to that in a second. Before we do, we'd like to say thanks for watching. And we hope you've enjoyed following this video so far, and if you have, it would help our channel a lot if you could like this video and subscribe to the channel. At this stage, we're still fighting the algorithm, so every contribution is a huge leap forward for our growth. For 350,000 years or so, Neanderthals lived alongside woolly rhinos. More than this, evidence suggests that many of the Neanderthal populations were specialist rhino hunters. But unlike modern humans, Neanderthals didn't stand at a distance and shoot them, and then, of course, pose next to the corpse grinning like a moron and pretending like they've actually accomplished something. They hunted these rhinos with spears. But even more, unlike Homo sapiens, they didn't throw these spears, they lunged in and thrusted them. Now, it's quite easy to support the idea that thrusting is more simple than throwing, and we'll come back to why that's important in a second. But let's go back to that tipsy group of Neanderthals crossing through what is now Magdeburg's Roterhorn Stadtpark 50,000 years ago, stepping on frozen soil that will one day be parted by the Elbe River, coming face to face with a 2-ton woolly behemoth with a 130-centimeter horn and all the rage of a persecuted beast. And now think that those people would have fought these beasts in hand-to-hand combat for hundreds of thousands of years with sharpened sticks. It is a testament to the Neanderthal tenacity that they didn't choose to eat sagebrushes themselves instead. But despite this incredible resilience in the face of such a hostile world, this group of young Neanderthals would be one of the last on Earth. By this time, there was a new predator percolating through the gauntlet of dangerous animals and routinely coming out on top: us. Modern humans also hunted with spears, but they did it with a little more strategy. Instead of lunging wildly at their prey, they stood well back and hurled them. This seemingly simple adjustment may well have been the thing that set off the Pleistocene megafaunal extinction, and may even have led to the demise of the Neanderthals too, around 40,000 years ago. Our species took this throwing spear concept, combined it with a lack of any evolutionary adaptation to counter it, and set about eating all the animals. And they did it so well that within a few thousand years they were almost all gone, along with all the other animals that relied on them for food, including the descendants of any of the Magdeburg survivors. Research also suggests that hunting by these humans prevented the woolly rhinos from migrating with the climate, returning to their foraging grounds and generally being able to exhibit their healthy rhino behaviors. And so 30,000 years ago, the woolly rhinos were forced south by the hunting pressure of humans, being ultimately scattered and trapped in the warmer and rapidly deteriorating habitats of southern Europe. Cave paintings all over this region show this process, documented in plant dyes on the walls of ceremonial locations once used by our Pleistocene ancestors. While in the late Pleistocene there were over 60 species of enormous herbivores weighing over a ton, today there are only 8. 4 of these are rhinos, and none of them lives in Europe. So the woolly rhino represents the last stand of the European megaherbivores, and also the concept of humans and monsters living together without one or the other going extinct. Neanderthals did what we couldn't for over 350,000 years. And as the cold from our prehistoric planet continues to retreat, they are still revealing Ice Age secrets about ourselves from the permafrost. And that's all for this video. Thanks again for watching, and please don't forget to give it a like if you made it this far. In the meantime, we hope to have you back for the next one.